Thank you. Welcome. How's everyone doing? Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I know this is a much larger FinOps conference. I don't know if any of you have been to the last one in Austin. Not for me either. This is the first one I'm attending, so I'm really excited to meet and see so many colleagues, some familiar faces. Well, anyway, a quick introduction of myself. I'm running a team at SAP that's responsible for all of the cloud infrastructure. When I say multi-cloud, we really have a true multi-cloud, like all the hyperscalers, plus our own data centers. That's what I mean here. So a quick agenda overview. After the intro, I'm going to talk a little bit about Cloud FinOps at SAP. It's a relatively new concept at SAP, despite the fact that we've been doing Cloud FinOps or very similar activities for the last 5 or 6 years. And I'm going to talk a lot about the different types of multi-cloud services that my team offers. And this is primarily internal-facing to a lot of our applications, the customer-facing applications that we're selling to SAP customers. Last but not least, I'm going to talk a little bit about governance, because SAP is a very large organization. We have a pretty complex org structure. In order to do FinOps, there's a lot of governance lessons learned we've come across in the last years of practices. So I want to share that with the audience here. And I'm going to conclude that with some of the takeaways and probably, hopefully, some time for questions as well. So just a little quick overview of SAP for those of you who don't know who we are. We are one of the largest application software companies in the world. And we've grown to over 100,000 employees now worldwide. Very large customer base. I think the last fiscal year revenue is crossed the $30 billion US dollars or euros, close to that range. We operate in over 100 countries. So that means we have a lot of presences in different geographic markets, and we have to deal with a lot of the local regulations and data residence requirements and what have you. So looking at the cloud transformation journey SAP has gone through, we've been existing as a company for about 50 years. And when SAP started in 1980s or 90s, when we released our first ERP products, or the mainstream ERP products, when we revolutionized the industry, it was completely an on-prem product. For those of you who've worked with SAP, you know it's a monolithic monster software, very heavy to deploy. It runs a lot of servers on data centers. It takes days or longer weeks to deploy. But that all changed since the cloud revolution in the 2000s. Right? We've seen the company, we've seen the industry changing or shifting to the cloud era. And SAP had set its vision or direction to move everything from on-prem to the cloud. And it took us a long time to do that, right? We started doing that about the 2010 or so. And in the middle of doing that, we realized, there's this really a need to form a practice to help everybody, to help our workload move into the cloud. And by cloud, at that time, it was primarily AWS. We have a lot of business units start using AWS in a kind of a self-service manner. Like literally developer or development teams are swiping their credit cards to buy AWS services. Right? And that's when we start to realize we need to start controlling the cost and negotiate an enterprise contract. So just around about 2016 or 2017 timeframe, we formed this idea, the so-called multi-cloud center of excellence. And we defined a 4+1 strategy where we say we're going to operate on, at that time, actually, there's not much Google at that time. It was primarily AWS. And then Azure coming, and then Google was added later on. We also started to operate in China, where we picked Alibaba Cloud as our primary go-to provider in that market. But at the same time, we decided that we're going to continue to keep our own data center or our own cloud, which we call Converged Cloud, or +1. So the 4+1 strategy has been something we've adopted since the get-go. And as we are starting to do this in the last 4 or 5 years, we start to see a lot of the cloud FinOps industry maturing, and also the providers started to provide a lot of best practices. The famous flywheel in the middle, this is from FinOps Foundation, and we kind of started to adopt or redefine rather a lot of the stuff we do in this outer ring, kind of a 5-stage or 5-portion flywheel. Start from understand cost, and then benchmarking, forecasting, optimize usage, optimize rate, and finally the governance. They don't necessarily go in a particular order because a lot of things are happening, in parallel. And I have a more detailed map, and this is the so-called a maturity map that we define internally. When we look at what we're doing in each one of these cloud FinOps cycle or life cycle stages, we look at the different activities or different goals that we want to reach. And the ones that I listed here in bold fonts, those are the ones we're already doing for many years and doing fairly maturely. And the ones that are in italic fonts, those are the ones that we're still trying to crack the nuts, if you will. And there are still challenges. We're still trying to solve them as we speak. I'm not going to read every bullet. I'm going to go through some of the services in my later slides to talk about each one of them that we are tackling or we have tackled. But essentially, this is how we are reflecting ourselves in the last few years when we look back what we've done, what we're going to be doing, and leveraging the FinOps best practices from the foundation. So a little bit about setting up the team, right? When we set up the team 5, 6 years ago, we looked at how we want to do this. The first thing we have to go to our executives is we need some budget to do this, right? So the way we do that is we say we're going to charge a percentage of how much we spend in the public cloud or in the converged cloud as our as a markup to the price. It's similar to the support premium or however you want to call it. But this cost is used to fund the team operations, and we've got buy-in from the CFO. We got buy-in from the business leaders, so we're able to start the team that way. Right? So where we belong on the left, we are part of the infrastructure services. This is a foundation where we provision all of the services from the business process perspective. Right? We look at the demands from different business units. That's the half circle. On the top of the left figure, this is the you can look at it as what SAP offers as a software solution portfolio to our customers. So all of those are our internal customers or lines of businesses. They tell us what infrastructure demand they need, right? And then our team, so my team, infrastructure team, we provision the infrastructure services. And at the end of the day, once they spend those money from the providers, whether it's internal data center or public cloud, we charge back to them, right? In fact, SAP ERP is basically a core finance system, right? We use that ourselves to run our finance. So like all the cost allocation, cost objects are defined within our own ERP systems. And we use that to charge, cross-charge, or charge back to each business units. There are 3 pillars to the multi-cloud services when we started. And we're adding more to the services we do, but essentially this is the main categories of services we do. We consolidated all of the accounts, hyperscaler accounts in this case particularly, into a single team or service offering. So every business unit who has to acquire a hyperscaler services has to go through this process. It's an automated self-service process. People have to acquire account from. And we put a lot of the security policies in place as part of this account provisioning processes. So everybody got a set of default policies defined. And last but not least, the cost management come into play. And I'm going to talk about cost management in more details after this, because this is what the FinOps topic is about. So first thing we have attacked is the cost reporting, right? When we started, we were looking at different tools available on the market. That was like 5, 6 years ago. I think the first tool we bought is RightScale, not part of Flexera. We used that for a couple of years. We found out there are some gaps, and just like normally tools come, tools go, right? So we adopted CloudHouse from VMware afterwards, but that is also not enough. And I've heard a lot of customers saying, yes, it's a great showback tool, but we still have a lot of custom reporting requirements. So typically, what we have to do is to build additional customized reports and data analysis capabilities in our own custom development efforts. It happened to be that SAP has its own BI tool, just like some of the other companies. They use Tableau, they use what have you. We do the same thing. We build on top the custom reporting for our controlling team, for our business operations team, and so on. On the left, it's a screenshot taken from CloudHouse that we use today. On the right, it's just another custom dashboard that we built ourselves. Another major service we provide is the cost estimation. We have undergone a major migration effort to move most of our workload from legacy data centers into the public cloud. That has completed a couple of years ago. And as part of that effort, and for those of you who are still in this journey of migration, we put together a dashboard, but also an API service that incorporates all of the enterprise discounts we had negotiated with the providers and made them available to all of the lines of businesses. So they can, for instance, they can give us or upload their BOM, bill of materials, to this tool, and we can calculate the cost. And they can immediately tell how much it costs, which platform is more cost efficient for them to migrate to. And of course, there's regional pricing differences and so on, from different hyperscalers. Another thing we did is cost benchmarking. This one is a little interesting because controlling always wants to understand how much things cost from different platforms, which one is more expensive. which one is more cost-effective to run their businesses, to maximize the cloud margin, right? The matter of the fact is, because we're a central team, the best we can do is to provide the infrastructure unit cost. So we have defined two metrics. One is the virtual CPU core hourly cost. The other is the terabyte memory cost, also hourly cost. So those costs are good enough as a baseline to compare costs across different platforms, including our internal platforms. But it's not really reflecting a lot of the other benefits you may be able to get from hyperscalers, innovations, speed to time to market, things like that nature, right? There is a work in progress. We are working with each lines of business to really calculate the unit economics based on per user, per transaction, even per tenant, because a lot of our solutions have different delivery models or commercial models. So there is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to unit economics. Another issue we have to deal with is the demand and capacity management. Sometimes we deploy applications at a very large scale. We're asking or we're reserving thousands of VMs in any particular region, and hyperscalers may not be able to meet those requirements. So we do those, so from both demand and supply front, we have to work out some sort of a forecasting algorithm. SAP has its own business planning software, forecasting software called IBP, Integrated Business Planning. We sell this solution to customers, but we also use it for ourselves. I wouldn't say the forecasting or capacity demand management is the most accurate today. It does some basic trick for us. It's also used machine learning behind the scene. We've also seen providers or vendors providing AI-based forecasting algorithms to us. But this is an area where we certainly have to improve. So after all the migrations into the hyperscalers, just to give you guys an idea, we are running probably 80% of our workload in the hyperscaler environment today. And we're talking about 10-digit spending every year. So there's definitely a lot of needs for optimization. Normally, you wanted to do resource optimization first, and then you do rate optimization after, right? I'm going to talk about the rate optimization, which is RI, reserve instances, or cut next. But resource optimization is actually a pretty complex topic and very hard to deal with. The reason being that when you want to optimize your resource, we as a central team usually have a pretty limited power or authority to really execute all the way, right? You have to work in partnership or in shared responsibility model with your lines of business, your application teams, because ultimately they own those accounts, they own those workload. Just talking about right sizing is one topic, which is a pretty challenging topic from my experiences. It is really in the hands of the application engineers. They have to ensure the application performance is always met, right? When you wanted to downsize certain VMs, even if the utilization is always under 5 or 10%, you say, okay, here's a recommendation. I want to right size or downsize your VM or your VM group. They wanted to make sure that you don't sacrifice their performance or cause customer downtime or grievances. So that is something you really have to work out and earn the trust of your application team before anything can happen. All of the solutions on the market today, we've looked at many of them, does not do that last mile job. So we'll have to really do something on our own. And this is a screenshot of some of the tool that we built in-house, actually. This tool not only reports the saving opportunity from different categories, whether it's right sizing, waste collection, resource hibernation, disk optimization. There's probably at least 5 or 10 different categories of savings that we identify from the, especially from the lift and shifted workload after migration. We rank them by opportunity size, how much you can save in the coming fiscal year and so on. And we also track by, so some optimization are easier to do, like waste collection, right? When you identify a resource that hasn't been used for a very long time, typically you can easily just claim them without any harm to the application. So that we actually help LOB, the lines of business, do right out of the gate. They don't usually complain. So we not only identify the opportunities, but also we track how much has been saved, how much has been realized. And all of this reporting has been aggregated across the company and reported to a central government body and their controllers on a weekly basis. Then I want to talk about reserve instance management a little bit. This is probably the area that you can achieve biggest saving potential because this is this is where you can get the biggest discount, right? So everybody knows that. It is a well understood problem. The only caveat you have to deal with is when you work on reserve instance management, and we keep increasing, trying to achieve a high coverage amount, right? I think right now our coverage on reserve instance usage is way above 90%, which kind of reached a dangerous threshold, because the more you do, the more you reach close to 100%, the more chances you're going to start wasting resources, especially after you start doing optimization, right? So we start seeing some of the business units after optimization, after the downsizing, for instance, they find out the purchased commitment is no longer needed. So how do you do that, right? So the trick is really to, I guess there are two things. One is because we're still a growing business, we're growing our spend in the hyperscaler environment pretty healthily. So we have room to exchange or use those unused capacity commitments, as we start to acquire new workload needs. The other thing is, of course, you have to just watch out. When you start optimizing, the input that this tool that we build in-house has to take into the forecast how much you plan to save from the optimization, right? You see that from the previous screenshot. We're trying to discover and predict how much we can save on the next 6 months or 12 months. So we take that into consideration when we purchase our eyes. Let me touch base a little bit about policy and governance. This is really a team sport. A lot of people said earlier today in the keynote or different sessions. When we say it's a team sport, so I own an engineering organization, but we can't do this without the product team, the controlling finance team, even the procurement team, because we constantly renegotiate our terms and conditions with the providers. And we need executive support, right? And that's where the reporting becomes super important. You have to provide that transparency and visibility to your executives, so they know this is something that you have to do. This one is a little bit of a eye chart slide because there's a lot of bullets here. But I also like this slide a lot because this is how we think about how we build our FinOps practices in-house versus leveraging third-party solutions. So to me, there is no single one-size-fits-all vendor solution out there that can help SAP solve every need we have. So the only way to do that, conversely, I can't build everything or solve every solution. Solve every problem on my own, because I don't have enough resources. I don't have enough money to do that. And plus, this is not a SAP core business, right? We're not in the business of doing cloud FinOps as a living. So we really have to break our problem space down into different building blocks or different layers. And we look at each one like Lego boxes. And when we look at a vendor solution, we often look at whether the vendor solution provides the flexibility to solve a particular problem at a time for us. And when we do that, we have pretty good luck working with some of the vendors. They're willing to open up their APIs. They're willing to open up their data for us to access, to process on our custom logic. So for that, we have some good luck working with some vendors. But this is going to be a continued evaluation that we will be doing along our cloud FinOps journey. So my last 2 slides, or maybe 3 slides, just touch base about what we're going to focus on next. Forecasting, I mentioned earlier, still an area of working. Tagging, we don't have an enterprise-wide or company-wide tagging strategy. Individual businesses have their own things, which makes reporting sometimes challenging or analysis challenging. Learning, very important. I recently spent a lot of time working with our central finance team, helping them come up to speed on what FinOps means, what are the key elements in the total cost of ownership when it comes to cloud margin. So a lot of controllers have to learn what that is, right? They learn about what is right sizing, they learn about what is RI, commitments, et cetera, et cetera. Unit economics, something we need to work with each and every business unit about. We can't do it alone as a central team. Business planning, yeah, it's a broader topic. Again, nothing can be done with a single central engineering team. Although we can provide a lot of good enablement tooling, it does require a lot of team sports. So some of the key takeaways, build a central team to do FinOps for your company. Have a proper funding model so you can sustain yourself, keep growing, and doing what you want to do for the company. Make a smart build versus buy solution. No single tool, at least in our complexity or scope, can solve everything we need. Define clear business goals, whether you want to save more dollars or achieve more cloud margin or what have you, right? You need to work with your business units, your controllers to define what it is. Education, training, also super important. Don't assume everybody knows everything in this world. In the FinOps world, I think this is where we should all leverage FinOps Foundation. There's a lot of community events. I've been encouraging my team and developers, application developers, controlling community to get on FinOps website and learn things on their own. All right, that's my last slide. Questions?
We've got just a couple of minutes left, so are there any questions anyone would like to ask? Yes, you're right here.
You mentioned that your funding internally is based on a percentage of cloud spend. I wondered, firstly, if you're willing to share what percentage you picked, and secondly, how did you get to that number?
Yeah, we build our percentage based on the total spend. I know a lot of vendors come to us trying to build on the value, like how much savings. But saving is incredibly hard to track. That's why we kind of defaulted to the spend number. We're always down to the single digit, and we're lowering that number year after year.
Okay, I got one over here.
A great presentation. Quick question on the tooling. So you did mention Cloud Health, and you also mentioned a lot of the custom stuff that you've done. What is it based off of? Some of it looked like Power BI. Are you using anything from the cloud to develop some of those dashboards and such?
A lot of those tools you saw are natively developed by my engineers. It doesn't take a lot of effort. Usually for some of those tools, I throw in 5 engineers. They work a couple of months. They can build that. And it's all natively developed using custom JS frameworks and things like that. We don't use Power BI or anything. We do have our own BI tools, but it's not as flexible as building coding ourselves.
Can you talk about the cloud delivery architecture board that was on one of your graphics?
Yeah, so it is basically a virtual team that's co-chaired by the infrastructure senior VP and the product senior VP. So the idea is to define a set of KPIs. I wouldn't call it mandate yet, but at least a set of KPIs for each lines of business, application teams, and my team, the infrastructure team, to work together towards the same cost management goals.
All right, I just want to thank one more time Wallace for sharing his SAP stories with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming. Just like on the back of all of your badges, the QR code for Wallace's LinkedIn is right there, and so please feel free to connect with him. And thank you all for coming.
Have a great rest of conference.
Thanks for watching that session. I'm sitting here in San Diego right after FinOps X. We hope you join us next year here live 2024. In the meantime, please subscribe to the channel and join the community. Get involved, join the summits, get in a working group, and don't forget to get FinOps certified. Because next year here in San Diego for FinOps X, it's going to be twice as big. Come join the party. Come meet your people. Welcome home.